So today's objectives it's kind of when we get into like that data analysis part of data. We're going to get into what is called our aggregate functions. So that will be something new that's introduced to you all tonight. The other thing that we're going to get into tonight is our logical operators. Now, last week we did touch on filtering our data, but logical operators, let me record. But logical operators they provide you the ability to get very specific with filtering your data. So logical operators is like how I talk about SQL. It's like once you really get your teeth into the nitty gritty of SQL, everything that we pretty much learn after you get past those core concepts is going to be an extension of something else. So logical operators are going to be an extension of filtering, which is what we did last week. But what's going to be completely new to you all tonight is our aggregate functions. So I am going to start out with just a recap of what we did last week. Last week we got into the introduction of SQL. So we started out talking about what is called those DML languages, which is that data manipulation language. And we got into those 4 core concepts: select, insert, update, and delete. And I was saying how these 4 concepts encapsulate how SQL language works in its entirety. However, I would say about 99% of your work is going to be selecting data. So if insert, update, and delete were uncomfortable for you, it's okay. We talked about how in SQL, you are selecting your columns from your tables. Your data is stored in your table. So whenever we have our columns here, we're explicitly saying, I need this data and this data and this data from this table. We also introduced those filters last week because in this update statement, it required for us to filter our data or to provide a condition to say, I need you to update this table where this column equals this value. So that introduced us to our conditions. This week, we're going to clearly take our select statement, but we're also going to get into our logical operators, which is our ability to filter down on multiple conditions within SQL. And that's actually where I like to start. Do we have any questions on that before we get into tonight's lesson? Let's go then. So tonight, we are going to get into logical operators. So what are logical operators? Logical operators are essentially the ability to filter your data on multiple conditions. Last week, we focused on, I need a list of students that had a grade of a B, or I need a list of students who study biology, or I need to select this data where, and we only had like one condition. In real life, you are going to have the expectation for you to have data with multiple conditions. And when you think about what that looks like in real life, in healthcare, you might say something like, I need all the patients that visited this clinic and have this certain diagnosis or visited this doctor or whatever that case is. Logical operators are going to allow you to do that because they allow you to combine multiple conditions to filter your data based on that information. Now, the logical operators that we're going to focus on tonight is and, or, between, in, and I do talk about not, but it's multiple ways to do that as well. So let's get into and. When we're looking at this snippet of code here, what do we think the business case was for someone to write this code? What is this question answering? Greater than. Yep. And Kiara, I say this all the time, but greater than and less than, I be having to do my hand like I don't know what it is, but like I be having to be like alligator bite. I'm so childish, but that's exactly what it do. Like if I was to pull this, I'm saying that I need selecting these columns from this table. Then we get into our logical operator or filtering our data, where we say where this column equals this value and this column is greater than this value. And the way that and works within SQL is both of those conditions have to be met. So I'm saying my output has to meet this condition and that condition, like typically like how we discuss and like in our natural language. So in this case, you're exactly right. We will pull all the data from the employees table where this column equals this value and this column equals that value. And when we're filtering our data, you're only going to put that where one time. Think about it like I'm a physical, like my brain is very physical. So think about it like a coffee filter. Your where is your coffee filter. Anything that comes after that, you don't have to put where anymore. When you making coffee, you only got one coffee filter. So anything that you put after that, it's just like where this column equals this value, and this column equals that value, and this column equals this value. You essentially just keep layering your code right on top of it. And it's one of the beautiful things like about once your brain kind of starts like working in a way to understand code in its entirety, really. Because like even with you understanding it like this, you'll be able to look at like any snippet or any language or line of code and kind of pick up patterns. Like when we have our logical operators, anything that we put underneath that, it essentially, any condition we add, we're essentially just gonna keep layering it right underneath it. Same pattern, same everything. So once you get down to like what you're trying to answer, just start layering your code. And we're gonna talk about that tonight too, once you get in your use case. What is this as answering? Or when I look at this syntax, what's my business case for this? Yep. And or performs exactly like how it performs in our natural language. Like it's basically like if it meets this, I want it. If it meets this condition, I want it. Or if it meets that condition, I want it. If it meets that, like it doesn't matter. Whatever those conditions are, if it meets either one of them, I need it in my output. Not is like where it like negates a condition where you would say select these columns from this table where not department is IT. Another way to do that is I'm going to type it in the chat if I can find my mouse. Oh, there you go. Can y'all see me on the screen? Like, cause my laptop black for some reason. Oh, okay. So another way to say not is I'm typing it in the chat where column name and you put your equal sign and the exclamation point and whatever value. So you basically saying where this column name is not equal to that value. Between. So between actually used to give me like this used to be so weird to me. I remember being like on a technical assessment and having the question of like giving me all the data within a certain date range. And I remember like blanking out. Like, and I knew it, but like for some reason my brain just didn't grasp it. Between is a logical operator when you need to check like between certain ranges. Like for example, between where this column, between this value and that value. So in a realistic expectation, it could be something like this. If I only need records that meet this certain criteria within this range. Another common way to do that is dates. Because when you think about how you might only need clients from the last quarter or clients from the last year, that between logical operator is going to get you there. Because between allows us to check if that value falls within that specific range. And is a common one as well. And the way and works is if that value exists within this column at all, like in any capacity, if any of these values fit in this column, I need that. So let's think of an example. For example, like healthcare, when you're looking up like certain codes, and you might say, like, I'm looking for all of these codes are reminiscent of like this condition or this criteria. And I'm looking in this column though. I'm only looking at one column, but I'm looking for multiple values in that one column. That N is how you do that. And you select your column names from your table. Start out with your where, this column, N, and you list out all those values. And it's important that like when you listing out those values, to know that like whatever value that you list out, it has to match what that data has in their database. Any questions about these logical operators? Okay. Now, let's go within our database. As we do our use cases, I am going to, as we do our use cases, I have this up so you can see. Because the goal is never for you to like try to memorize anything. The goal is for you to take a business case and say, all right, this is what I need to do that. This is what I need to do to answer this, and be able to write from that capacity. Okay. So let me know when you all are connected to your database. Good. So let's start out here. So, or is anybody having problems, or y'all? Because I don't want to leave, but also. Y'all being awkward tonight. I ain't gonna lie. Okay. So we have our server here. Okay, so we have our server here. Remember that our server is the brain. Like that keeps your data working. So we have our server here, which is our main environment. We come down right here and we have our databases. We talked about databases in session 1. Like, what is a database? Basically, anything that stores your data. These black boxes, that's where your data is stored. So these are your databases. So for tonight's session, let's go into our healthcare system database. Last week, we were in our data analytics simplified database. Let's go into our healthcare system database and let me know and expand your tables. Just click on your tables, the little plus sign next to your table, and expand it. And it might take a little minute to populate. Is y'all your table taking a minute to populate to open up? Okay, 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 okay. It's just meeting. Okay. Okay, cool. Now, in this, you see you have 5 tables here in this database. We have 5 different tables. So the first thing that we're going to do when we get in here is let's revisit those data relationships. So let us take a look at our columns in our appointments table. Does anybody remember what the PK meant? Yup. What's the primary key, Kira? Keep talking. Yes. That primary key is a unique identifier for that table. Do y'all remember what that FK meant? Yup. What's that? I get tired. Yep. Yep. The primary key is a unique identifier for that table. That FK, which is a foreign key, is the unique identifier for another table. That is what establishes that data relationship. So I'm looking at this appointment table. I'm like, all right, I know that my PK is my primary key. I mean, I know my appointment ID is my primary key, but I got a few other keys in here. Let's go down to our appointments table and let's do some data investigation there. And does anybody know that data relationship between that doctor's table and my appointments table? What's the data relationship there? Yep, yep. And the reason why I'm getting you, Kiara, you ain't playing tonight. The reason why I'm getting you like your brain, I don't like to use the word groom, but like your brain like wired to work like that is because multiple things. But first of all, that is going to help you like all the way around in every data tool because it's a big focus on data quality and you understanding like how those data relationships work. That's the big part. But the second part is interview. So when you're interviewing and you might have to do a technical assessment, I always coach you all to talk through what you're doing. So as you start interviewing, just pull up and we can strategize together to get you ready for your interview. But also, as you're doing your technical assessment, what you just did here, like literally do that. Like talk through it. Okay, I see my appointments table is related to my doctor's table on my doctor ID. I see that my appointment ID is my primary key. Just like literally talk through everything you thinking to like show that like you understand data in its entirety. So when your brain gets to working like that, it comes natural to you. But the other big part of it is as we get into like session 3, which is like join, um, those joins are established on those data relationships. And joins are a huge source spot for a lot of people in data. So when you start getting your brain to like naturally start looking at those data relationships and stuff, joins really don't be that hard. Like it's really like, okay, let me make sure I understand this so I understand what to join these two tables on. And that also helps you in every single data tool ever. Like it's going to help you if you are looking to get into like more advanced data analysis. It's going to help you in Python with like merging your data. It's going to help you in data visualization with creating those data sets. Like it just helps you all the way around. So I focus on it from session one. But yeah, that's a good. You did good. Let's get into our okay. Let's start out with our medical test table. So let's right click our table and select our top 1,000 rows. And remember, when we right click and we select this top 1,000 is the limit. So it's only going to show up 1,000 records in our output, and everything that is included in our select statement is going to show up in our output. So if I don't want results, I'm going to just comment it out and execute, and result is not going to show up down here. But don't delete any columns. Like if you don't no longer want it, don't delete it. Just comment it out because it just makes it easier for you to be able to, work. So first things first, let's get rid of our limit. Let's get rid of our top 1,000 and let's re-execute. Now, for this use case, if I was to get a data request, and in this use case, I would need a list of all the patients who had abnormal MRIs. How would I write my code to capture that? I'm gonna pull this up. If I need a list of patients who had abnormal MRIs, but I'm gonna type it in the chat. I need a list of patients who have had abnormal MRI scan. What columns would I use to answer that question? Your patient ID would be in your output. Yes, yes. You would need your test name and your result. So let's write our code to capture. I only want patients who had abnormal MRI tests. So I'm gonna leave. Would y'all prefer to see this or this as the example? Okay. Now, a hack with this is this is gonna require you to have multiple conditions. So the hack with it is write your code. You got our code right here. Cool. Execute. We know that this works. Write one condition at a time. If we looking for abnormal MRI test, write your code to capture one condition, test it, then come back and be like, okay, I know this works. Now let's add my other condition. Like we gonna layer it just like that. We're gonna do our condition, test it, do our condition, then test it. So I need a list of patients with abnormal MRI scan. Okay. And in your output, you should only get, what you filtered out your data to get. Y'all stuck or y'all want to talk through that? Or did you get that? Okay, who was it? Kira? Who? Somebody else said something too. Okay, okay. Did anybody get stuck or want to talk through it? Uh-oh. All right. So we got our select statement. We have all of our columns from this table. Where what though? Where this column equals this value and this column equals that value. So in my output, I only have data that matches both of these conditions. Did y'all get the same thing in your output? Okay. Mhm. That's exactly why. And yes, because yeah, think about it. Like, all right, let's say, okay, let's say if I'm saying where test name and I messed around. First of all, we start out from this. But let's say I'm like, all right, I need all patient, um, what I say, abnormal MRI scans. And I turn around and I say, where test name MRI. And I don't say MRI scan, I execute. And I'm like, ain't no data. So it's easier for me to go like, that and it's opposed to like having everything on one line. And I gotta like figure out when my code broke it. You're welcome. And then it helps you, like I said, like especially if you get like real complex here, especially with you've been like in Salesforce and all this other stuff. But when you get like into that, and you can have like it could be something so small that throws you off, and it just makes it so much easier for you to be like, all right, this is where I messed up at, or this is where I, need to go back when you layer it like this. Like this, I just did something. Oh, it's the same example when I was showing MRI. Yeah. But yeah, for this one, let's go into y'all's database is called Orders DB. Go into your Orders DB database and into your tables there for the next use case. Go into your Orders DB and then expand your tables right here so you can see all of your different tables in there. Now for this one, let me know when you get over there because I ain't gonna tell you the table for this one because I want you to do some data investigation. For this one, I'm not gonna tell you. Yep, your database, that Kim. That's Ashley. Your database is called Orders DB. Is that what it's called, y'all? Do anybody else see it? Okay, okay, okay. Ashley, it. Let me see your. You can't see your screen. Okay, that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Open up your tables in that one. Now, okay. Now for this use case, I need a list of orders that have shipped that are over the price of $200. I need a list of shipped orders over the price of $200. I'm gonna write it in the chat for you. Where is my mouse? I need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200. Now, first things first, data investigation. Go and look at your tables, right click your table, look at your data, and be like, you know what, this doesn't answer that, or this does answer that. Just go and right click and look at your tables and look at the data that's actually in there and say, does this answer all my question? Because we only working out on one table tonight, so it's only one table. But go and look at your tables and say, does this answer my question? And let me know when you find out the table that we need to do this use case. Or if you find a table, just post it in the chat. Or you can say it don't matter. I need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200. Yes. Yes. It is our orders table. And how did you what made you say that? Yep. That is exactly right. So get rid of your top 1,000 because that's the limit. And now write your code to answer the question. I only need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200. That's all I want. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about it. Keep your columns in there. like this, Ashley, when you select your, okay, so we are our orders table. When we right click our table and select our top 1,000 rows, those columns that pre-populate in there, keep them just like that. And whatever you don't need, don't delete it. Just comment it out. Put your 2 dashes to comment it out. But keep your select statement, whatever SQL automatically gives you to use for that table, keep it just like that. And anything a little like a little snippet too. Whatever is in your select statement is going to show up in your output. So when we're selecting these columns from this table, this is what's going to show up down here. Think of it like literally like everybody grocery shop. So think of it literally like you in the grocery store and I need this and I need this and I need this column and I need this column from where though? From this table. So think about it physically like selecting data from a table. But get rid of your top 1,000 because that top 1,000 limits the amount of data you got. And then just write your code, write your filter right on underneath here. Did anybody else have any questions? Anybody caught up on something? Okay. I think I know where you're going. Yeah. Yes. Girl, what you eat? Like you on it. Mm-hmm. That's right. Them integers, you don't have to do anything. But for that, like you said, that string, you do have to put like them single quotes around it. Yep. Yep. What I say where status is shipped. Okay. And let's take it a step further. Oh, wait. Did y'all get this one? Kira, I know you got it. Ashley, Kim, y'all got this? What you stuck? Who's it, Kim? Which part you hung up on? Think about it. Who's it? Kim still? Okay. Kim, think about it like this. Think about it in like a puzzle. I have this puzzle, and this puzzle is made up of my table, and each piece of this puzzle is my column. And I need small parts of each. I need small parts of each. So when you're doing, like, for example, a business case like this, break it down in small pieces. Like, for example, I'm gonna talk through like how my brain processing is. So the use case was I need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200. First things first, my data investigation, how Kiera thought through that process. Her first instinct was to go to this order details table. And she looking at this and she like, well, this can't be that because we don't have status here. and we don't have like, we have like total price, unit price, but we don't have like the price of the order. So this can't be this. So now let's look at our orders table. Oh, okay, this has to be that because it has our status and it has our total amount. So start out literally from that end. Like, where even is this data? That's the first thing. Then when you get in at the table you're like, wait, okay, so I need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna look at my columns. First of all, which of these columns answers the total amount? I'm gonna go from there and I'm gonna say, which of these columns answers the total amount? And I'll start there. So the total amount column answers it. Greater than $200. Let's start there. I got where my total amount is greater than $200. I answered that part of the question. But now these people want shipped orders. So now I need to add something else. So I go and add the other little piece to that and say, and this column, which is my status column, because that's what's going to tell me the status of the order. So think about it like bits and pieces. Don't look at it like a huge business. Break it down in literal bit by bit by bit. Test it, make sure it works, then go and add the other one and test that, and then make sure it works. Like, break it down small pieces to where it's like our brains are automatically like, the way we communicate, we're used to communicating in like big pieces. Like, I need a list of shipped orders over the amount of $200, and your brain instantly go to like a big picture. But from the data side, you have to look at it like from the other side and break it down from small pieces and then answer it like that. Do that make sense? Is that how just to kind of help me, is that how, like when you heard that business case, is that how your brain tried to process it like in a big thing? When we go through them, start training your brain to like, okay, take a business case and break it down piece by piece. Okay, I got this answer. Now I'm about to go answer this. Now I'm about to go answer that one. And then the more your brain like starts to function in like little bitty pieces, it will come like with practice, it'll come like, okay, that's how it has to like process it. And if anybody else have any advice and they were able to do it, how, like, feel free to like be like, this is how I process it. Mm-hmm. Okay. The yeah. The data types. If I look at my orders table and I see I see my total amount is a decimal, which is an integer. That integer does not require for you to put those single quotes around. It'll still work if you put them single quotes. However, the integer, I mean, the var car, which is our status, does require for you to put them single quotes around it because that's how the data is defined for the table. So think of it like you remember like in elementary school when we were learning like I don't even know if it was shapes, but it was the thing that we used to do where it was like a square. Was it a rectangle could be a square, but a rectangle can't be a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle can't be a square. It's the same sort of concept. Like if I have my integer data type, it'll still work if I put my single quote. However, my var I don't have a choice. I gotta do it. Yes. Like that's literally how it's like, all right, this is the integer, period. It don't even matter. I know that this is an integer. Like I know that because that's how it's defined. But with this string, it's like I have to treat it like a string. You're welcome. And some dialects, like we talked about, like different dialects of SQL, some don't care. But as you get into it and as you start interviewing, and if you do have a technical assessment, pull up and let's prep, because one of the things that I do want y'all to go into those technical assessments with is like how are they going to do the technical assessment, because sometimes you might have to write a few lines of code. Sometimes they might show you some code and you got to like debug it. Like it's different ways to do it. So in that technical assessment, it's important to be like, all right, so what dialect are you all using? Typically, in my experience, like I would say like 70% of my experience has been directly in Microsoft, because like everybody be using Microsoft. But I've also been in like Oracle, GCP, Redshift, all the other different dialects, and they all kind of different a little bit, but they the same. So some dialects don't really care and some do. Just like some of them don't care about like if it's like case sensitive, but some do. Like it just be little stuff like that. But yeah, that's exactly why. Any other questions? Okay. Now, this helps you practice like with two things, because goes back to like what we were doing. Even when I was showing the example with like layering our code, all right, this works. Now let's add the other piece. Okay, this works. And when you get your brain to start taking like that business problem and breaking it down into code, that's how it'll work. And the reason I train y'all on that is because when you get in your roles, you're the data professional. So your use cases or business questions are not going to come in the form of, hi, Larita, can you retrieve the data from this table? It's going to come in the form of how many clients did we serve in Q4? Or how many people did this last year? Or how many, like they're going to come in the form of business case questions. And when you think about in your day-to-day roles, like how you are naturally interacting with data now, if you're dealing with data, whether it's like in a CSV extract, or if you're counting financial data or whatever that looks like, you're not going in the mindset of selecting columns from the table. You're coming from the mindset of, I need X, Y, and Z. And somebody on the other end is just going and thinking it through it from the data perspective. So where we going with y'all is like the shoe about to flip to where now you are the person that's responsible for providing that data. Any questions on those logical operators? Now let's try or. We can put or instead of and on line 9, and you'll see how your data changes, because or does exactly what it says it does. I want data that meets this condition or this condition, and you'll see your data kind of it'll switch up a little bit, a lot. So that's those logical operators. Filter that data, but get like very specific in however you're trying to filter that data. I need data, I need an output that meets this condition or this condition or this condition. And everything goes back to tables and columns, period. Just think of everything from a column view. Where am I? Okay. Any more questions with those logical operators? Now, let's get into our aggregate functions. So what is an aggregate function? Aggregate functions, like at their core, are when you are calculating a statistic. Like it's when we get into our data analysis part of data or data science, which I don't deal with data science because baby. But when we get into our data analysis side of data, what's the sum of this? What's the average of this? How many people did that? How many people did that? When we get into the part of data that actually gets into calculating. So aggregate functions are functions that allow you to calculate your data. And at its core, at its bare minimum at the floor, your aggregate function is going to return one value. That's where we're gonna start at tonight. It ain't gonna be where we end, but that's where we're gonna start at tonight. Your aggregate function calculates one value. So when we are looking at our example for our aggregate functions here, we have sum, average, count, max, and min. And they do exactly what they said they were gonna do. Our sum calculates the sum of that column. And notice it has to be a numeric column, going back to what Kiara was talking about with them data types. It has to be a numeric column. So when we are formulating our aggregate function, we have our select statement, we have our aggregate function here, and whatever column that we're performing our aggregate function on has to go in our parentheses from our table. Now, in this select statement, it is one column. That's it. That's all. That is how we start out. The same way with average. Average calculates the average value of that column. So we have our aggregate function here and the column that we're performing that aggregate function on in parentheses. And if you deep in Excel, you already doing formulas. It essentially kind of works like a formula in Excel. Same way here, count. Count counts the number of rows in that column, not a sum. So a count can be a varchar. If I wanted to count a column with varchar, but a sum can't. A sum has to be values because like sum is adding up. A count is literally counting them rows. Max returns the max value of that column, and min returns the minimum value of that column. So this here, these are your egg functions, and you will probably use each of these quite often. But the good thing of it is the format doesn't change. Like if I was to go average, I would format my code for sum the same way I would average. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes is like my actual aggregate function. Everything else stays the same. Any questions on this aggregate function? What this aggregate function is doing is calculating the sum of this column for this whole table. That's exactly what this is doing. Give me the sum of this column for this whole table. For this one, let's actually stay in our orders. Let's stay in our orders DB. And if you can go and right click the orders table again. And I need the average total amount from your orders table. I need your average total amount. All the columns that you're not using, just comment them out. But I need the average total amount. I'm going to write it in the chat. I need the average total amount. Were y'all able to get this one? Who's that, Kiera? Where did you get caught up on, Kiera? Okay. Okay. And it threw you an error. Yep. We're gonna talk about that in the second part. This one, okay. Now, with this egg function, you only got one column. The only column that you got in your select statement is the column that you calculated. That's it. That's it. That's all. At this point, all we want is one column. And that one column is going to show up in our output. All we want is one. So for this one, we need the average total amount. Everything else, comment amount. We're going to use it in a minute, but it's still not going to be all of them. And I'll explain like why. This one, we only want to calculate this column for this whole table. I only want to calculate my average column for the whole table. Think about like in Excel. In Excel, when I'm calculating formulas, I'm calculating formulas for like whatever that formula is for themselves. Think about it just like that. In SQL, I'm calculating this column from this whole table. This my sales. So in that egg function, I need that whatever the egg function is, which in this case, average. And then whatever column I'm applying it to, put it right on in parentheses. And that's all I need for now. After that, after you commented everything out. Okay. Who else got stuck? Who's that, Crystal? Would you get stuck on the same thing Kiara did with not coming out the columns? Yep. When I'm commenting out well, let me put it like this. It's easier for me to put my 2 dashes there to get rid of what I don't need. So in the event that I come back in my analysis 15 minutes later or an hour later or 3 months up the road or whatever the case is, it's easier for me if I want to include something else just to go like this, as opposed to having to go and look at my tables and make sure that like my columns name match what I got in my select statement. It's easier to do that as opposed to the last. Did you get this one after you commented out all of your code? Did you get one record return? Okay. Now, with this, you see that your output does not have a column name. It literally says no column name down there. It calculated the average of your column, but in your output, it says no column name. Now, it's up to you to name what that column is. And when we name our column, it is called an alias. I'm going to type it in the chat. It's called an alias. It's no different than how we use alias in our natural language. You go to the DMV and it's like, all right, first name, last name, alias. You still very much so first name and last name. But they might call him or her this. It's the same way. With our alias in data, this is still very much so the total amount column. We ain't changing nothing. However, we're going to give our column a nickname. So in order for us to do that, we would say add. And you type whatever you want your column name to be right here. You can type it whatever it is. The reason that shows up like that is because when you are doing your analysis, you might be doing something where it's like, all right, I need to be able to define whatever that analysis was. So in this, it doesn't give you a column name, and it's your responsibility to go back and be like, but this is what I was calculating though. So when somebody sees this, they already know what you were calculating. You can name your alias literally anything, whatever you want, as long as it captures whatever you were trying to do. Now, aliases are going to come up again in session 3 when we get into our join. So it's one of them things that's like, all right, this relates back to that. Very much so. When we have our aliases, we are not changing the tables. We are not changing the columns. We're essentially just giving whatever that data is a nickname so we can use it. We can call it. Did everybody get this part? Okay. Any questions on that alias? Now, the second part of your aggregate function is the ability to group your data. Group by used to have me in a chokehold. Now I get it. So if it got you in a chokehold right now, you're not crazy. But the way that group by works, group by allows you to group your columns together and perform your aggregate function on those groups of data. We're still very much so calculating. Like we still very much so are doing the average of whatever, the minimum of whatever. We still very much so are functioning like that. However, the group allows us to group our data and calculate. And I relate everything to the grocery store because like we be grocery shopping. And The way that a group buy literally works is like this. Let's say you're at the grocery store and you have a conveyor belt. All of your groceries is on your conveyor belt. This is your conveyor belt right here. We executed our initial. This one gives us the average of everything on that conveyor belt. Or in our case, it gave us the average of everything in that table. Everything in that table, take everything on this conveyor belt and give me the total average of all these groceries together. Group buy gives you the ability to say, but wait though, I need the average amount of produce. I need the average amount of dairy. I need the average amount of meat. So it allows me to group my stuff, but calculate it. So therefore, I know, all right, so I spent an average $20 or $40 on meat. I spent an average of this on produce. I spent an average of this on it, as opposed to giving me an average of everything that I spent. That's how group buy works. Group it, but calculate it too, though. Calculate it by those groups and not by the full thing. Group by is used to group those rows that are like for example, we're still very much so selecting this column. Here's our aggregate function, count. This column name as total order. This is what we just did just a minute ago from our sales table. Group by this column. So I need to count, but I need you to group it too, though. Calculate, but group. So in my output, I'm going to get the count of order IDs by customer, as opposed to a full count of my order IDs. Group this stuff together, but also calculate it too, though. So that group by is going to give you the ability to give me the average amount by region, total amount by customer, total average amount by state. Calculate it, yeah, but group it too, though. Any questions on it? Okay. Okay. For this one. Oh, and another thing, in our group by, how we kept our aggregate function here, for group by, if we want the other column to show up in our output, we got to have our other column in our select statement. So for this one here, if I was to say, I need the average amount, I'm putting in the chat. I need the average amount by status. So for this one here, I would have to have status in my select statement. So for this, I need the average amount by status. So I will select, we already got our average total amount, but we also need status too. And we need to group it by status. So we got two columns in our select statement, two fields in our select statement, and we also need to group it by that. Let me know if you want to walk through this or if you are you able to do it. I got questions. Any questions on this one? Or were you able to get this? Oh, excuse me. And when you put your customer ID in there, it threw an error, didn't it? hmm Think about it like this, Ashley. Anything that we get in our output is what we gonna have in our select statement, even during this. So in this, if I needed average amount by what I say status, I only need them 2 columns. So that's what I need in that select statement. I need this column, which is our status, and I need the calculation or the aggregate function of this column to answer that question. And you see how this output helps an analysis. Like it's a lot clearer to read than calculating like that full average for that whole table. The full average for the whole table really don't tell us nothing. Just like the full average of all the groceries on my conveyor belt, that really don't tell me nothing. How much did I spend on milk though? Like, how much did I spend on meat though? So that egg function, the ability to group it and then keep your select statement to where it's like, I only need these 2 columns to show up in my select statement. Always like push yourself to be like, you know what? I only need anything in my select statement. That's all I need. That's what's going to show up in my output all the way around. Shut off. Yeah. I think with like what I've experienced, like with people that are learning SQL, I think that it is you almost have to like retrain how you think through questions. Like, and what I mean by that is like, for example, like the example I was giving Kim a minute ago, it's almost like our brain instantly goes to like big picture. And in SQL, it's like you have to talk to it in piece by piece by piece by piece. And then another thing, actually, to be honest, too, it's gonna take like repetitions too. Like what you did the other night, you ain't gotta do it tonight, but it's gonna take like that. Like it's for real. It's just like when people like SQL is one of those things. I hate to use the word like obsessed, like, but it's one of those things to where like you have to like train your brain to pick apart questions and pick apart in a way like, okay, if this is what they're asking for, then these are the columns. Literally, I keep going back to how Kiara described how she figured out which table to use to answer that question. That's how your brain, like, it has to take like a large picture and like break it down into data. Like from you got to go like from the end and then come up. Whereas naturally, we've been like our brains naturally work to look at the big picture and then go from there. But in SQL, it's like, okay, what's the big picture? Okay, what columns? Okay, what filters? Okay, what's the data type? Like it has to start small and then grow. And it's gonna come from like this, like doing this type of work. Another thing, honestly, that helps me too, and I still do it to this day, is like if I'm writing code, I talk through what I'm doing. Like we were on we were having it was an issue basically. And they were trying to figure out, like we all were on the call, but it was like a working session. Like we all were on the call working on like different pieces for like their data set. And in it, like I'm typically on mute, but like that time I wasn't on mute. So while I was talking through it, I was like, okay, I need this from this, I need that from it. And like I literally say it to myself, like it don't be loud, but I literally like, even when I'm doing it with y'all sometimes, like I'm literally like, okay, I need this table. Okay, I need this data. Okay, I need this. And like talking through it helps me like relate that what I'm trying to answer and like what I got. So it's just stuff like that, like practicing and talking through it is really big because it allows like it's so weird, but it allows like your ears to kind of get comfortable with like your brain and stuff working like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The bracket. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when you do that, and then when you go and when you find your error, and after you correct it, do you recognize it after then? Yep. And see, that's right there. That's the juice. Because once you break something or once and what you're doing, you're debugging. Like you ain't gonna never not do that. Like you'll never not debug. And what you're doing is like when once your brain, like once you make a certain type of error, and then when you find it and you go back and correct it, the next time you do something, it's like, oh, okay, I need to just go and put my parentheses. Like, oh, okay, I need to just go in, whatever. Like your brain, like you're gonna automatically come, and they can't, like that's practice right there, like breaking stuff and seeing where you messed up and going to debug and going to fix it. And then the next time you get it, you like, well, I know it gotta be this. That's the sauce right there. Yep. And now you will never do that no more. Like, yes. And like when I'm teaching, I be teaching from a place of like I done this so many times to where even when like somebody, for example, somebody be able to say, oh, well, I'm getting this. I already know what you messed up on. Like I already know it. And it's just gonna get to the point where it's like, in your case, I didn't put my parentheses where I was supposed to put a bracket. It's just like stuff like that. And over time with them reps, like think of it like literally the gym, like them reps, it's just gonna be like, oh, okay, this is what I need to do. And to be honest, Ashley, it's some technical assessments where that's gonna be the type of stuff you're doing right there. It's like debugging. Like they'll give you like some code and they'll say, okay, what would this work or why not? Or why does it? Or whatever. Which is also why, like when we're working together, I'm like, well, tell me why. Why, like, for example, I keep going back to Kiera because it was such a good example. But it's like, but why'd you pick that table though? Like, what made that right? Because when you make like those type of mistakes, and when you can go back and identify that stuff and debug and figure out where your error was and how to correct it, that's the work. That's it. you'll never not be doing it, even after you get your role, and even after you dealing with data, and even after you doing it, you always gonna be functioning like that for the rest of your data career. So that's literally what you need to be doing. You'll never, if it makes, and I say this all the time, you'll never, like, data is not one of those spaces. You know how you have some spaces to where it's like you come to like a stopping point. Like it's like, all right, I know A, B, C, D, E. Like you'll never do that. I still be learning new stuff. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that's how he do it. Or either I be done like saw somebody else code and they might have used a subquery where I would have used a CTE, which we get in on session 4. But it's like different things that people do, and you're like, oh, okay, they did it like this, but I do it like that. Like you, if it makes you feel better, you'll never come to the point where you ain't gonna have to debug. I remember I'm big on therapy, baby. I don't play. I need to text my therapist now. But I remember going through therapy one time and I was like having to explain like what my goals were, like what I was trying to basically, like we was talking through like careers and stuff. And she was like, okay, so what is this? And I was like, her name was Rashawn. I was like, Rashawn, I want the ability to be able to like do technical assessment, like I hate to say raw dog, but like with no resources. And she was like crying, laughing. Like she be laughing in our sessions anyway, because like I'm her best patient. But she was like, that's not realistic. She was like, girl, when you go to the doctor, your doctor uses resources and notes and tools and references. She was like, you come see me and I still reference like certain things. And I was like, you know what? That is crazy, ain't it? She was like, yeah. And like ever since then, I'm like, you know what? I was one of them that's like, I gotta know this, I gotta know that. Where it's like, yes, you need to know it, but also you always gonna be learning. So yeah, long story short, not on no tangent, but yeah. But that's the work. Long story short, that's the work. And you always gonna be functioning like that. Any questions on that group buy? Now, one more step, having. Having is used after group buy. And guess what, y'all? Having is a filter. However, whereas we've always been like filtering, like where this column equals this, where this having filters on a calculation, it filters on an aggregate function. So it functions very much so a filter. However, it is based on a calculation. Like in this example, it's like having sum of amount greater than 300. So we're filtering our data all day long, but we're filtering our data based on an aggregate function. This is a really good visualization of that. We have our where, we have our having. They're very much so filters, like filter my data all day long. However, it gives you the example here where it's like where this column is greater than 100. Having is like having sum of amount greater than 300. So I'm a filter, but I'm a filter my data based on that aggregate function. Any questions on that? Do we have any questions on like anything that we covered tonight? That Ashley, how y'all feeling after tonight? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Pull up. Oh, you say you took him. Yeah, go back and listen. And like like when you're doing your analysis, when you're doing your work, like say it. Like say, okay, I need this data from this column. I need this data from that column. I was like, I was on a live, like a working session, and somebody was like, Larita, you're not on mute. And I was like, oh, I'm not, my bad. Like say it so you train like your brain to break down whatever your analysis is, and you can get used to like your brain functioning in that way and break stuff. Like Ashley, you with those brackets and parentheses, like that's what you need to be doing because it helps you. Like that's what you need to be. It helps you, and it helps like train your brain to start knowing like what to look for, where you messed up at, what you did this. Kiera, you did a good job tonight too with like going and identifying like what data you needed and then breaking it down from that angle. That's how your brain gonna have to work. Piece by piece. Like Franklin, I don't know if y'all watch Snowfall, but like Franklin Saint said, brick by brick. Like that's literally how SQL works, brick by brick. It's not gonna like assume anything. It's not going to like read between the lines. It's very much so very specific to like whatever you said. And if it's not specific to that, it's like gonna be like, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, so go back and watch it. Next week we're doing joins and sub queries. So joins is like what it sounds like, joining them two tables. So as y'all practice throughout the week, and even on those coding challenges, as y'all practice through that, start paying attention to like data relationships and stuff, because that is going to push you up, not push you up because joins are like intermediate, but that is going to accelerate your understanding with them joins. Like, all right, what's my data relationship? Subqueries is a query inside of a query, but subqueries are essentially filtering on steroids. Like it's like filtering on steroids. So really use the time also to understand how filtering works, because that understanding gonna push you right into subqueries and CTEs, which is what we do too. Now we do case statements. We do subqueries and case statements. Case statements is also like a form of filtering too. So it's all kind of like related, but they all not. So any questions for tonight? Do I owe any do I owe anybody anything before we go? Yeah, but Kiera, if you want to stay, Kiera had a question about the coding challenge. If y'all wanted to stay, or do you have time to stay for a few minutes? Okay. Okay. Kiera had a question about the coding. She was essentially trying to see how to do it. So if y'all had questions about that, y'all can stay. But if not, if you need me, you know where I am. Schedule a consult with me. But I'll see y'all tomorrow if y'all didn't have any questions about the coding challenge. Trying to find. Okay. Okay, you finna share your screen, Kira. Okay. I'll keep recording because I mean y'all oh, let me stop sharing. Okay. Now, okay, so Kiera. Oh, okay. Firstly, did you okay on the schema SQL side, did you execute that first? Let's start there. Yeah, this yeah, let's do that. Okay. Yeah, let's start there. And just make sure we did that. Okay. Now let's write, just like write select patient ID from patient table, and let's see what it do. You're doing it in your query SQL. Yeah. So your schema SQL is what's going to be used to create your tables, like you just did all day long. When you retrieving data, you're going to retrieve data from this table. Yes. So let's test it out and make sure. Let's do just select patient ID from patient. I'm gonna type it in the chat. Oh, and another thing with this one, this is case sensitive. So make sure your stuff, yeah, make sure your stuff, like whatever your table name is and stuff, make sure it match. Yep, it be little stuff. Mm-hmm. Put test it and make sure your data in there first, Kira. Just put patient ID in there first. Wait, scroll down in your schema SQL. Oh, okay, never mind. I was supposed to say you don't have no data over there, but yes, you do. Okay. From from your patient table, just say from and then patient. Just how it's written just over there with the capital P. Do the capital P, yeah. And then click run up there. And there we go. Maybe. And then another thing I noticed is that you had like the parentheses around it. You don't need you don't need that with like mm-hmm. Yup. It be just little stuff. And the reason a good like practice in this is like when you, let's say whatever your use case was, if you were looking for like whatever the use case was, this gives you the opportunity to like have little stuff to post on LinkedIn, have something like to practice even in between these sessions to keep your brain always working like this. Because y'all get like 12 of these, I think. Y'all get one every week for like the next 2.5 months, I think. So just to keep your brain like on go, because as y'all are like transitioning to this space, girl, you gonna have to keep practicing SQL. Like SQL is one of the things that you cannot put it down. Like you can't like it's not one of them things where like I can it's like you have to always every week look for like these things or like something to like keep your brain geared up until you get your offer, because SQL is definitely one of the things that you gotta like use it, or it's like you ain't never seen it before, especially when you learning it. Like it took me so long to like learn some of this stuff because I was like just doing YouTube, like stuff like that. But you literally got to do like this type of stuff every week, every couple of. I got a student now, actually featuring her now. She be practicing like a couple times a week until she get her offer. Like, mhm, mhm. Because it's not hard, but it's like you. you gotta practice. Like I tell people all the time, like if you only, and which I know you not, I know ain't nobody on this call leaves because like I done turned on the VM. But if you only looking at SQL like while we together, maybe like because it's the way that it's formatted is a little different. But I can tell you this though, I have seen like tonight, I saw a lot of improvement. Like I could tell, like once your brain start looking at data like this, it ain't gonna go back. Like it doesn't go back no more after that. So just like whatever you did between now and last week, you need to keep doing it. Yeah, whatever you did. But yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and case sensitive. So just pay attention to like stuff like that. It's like that's just how it is. That's my sequel. That's how it is over there. But you notice how this is typically like how we've been doing, but it's case sensitive. Like that's how sequel work. That's why I did it. That's another reason why I did it like that. Yeah. You're welcome. Any other questions, y'all? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Check your email, Ashley, for your weekly coding challenge. They call weekly coding challenges. Y'all go get one. I think it's like 12, I think. Y'all can get one for the next like month and a half. 2 months. Because it's 4 weeks in a month. Yeah. But every week you go get one. It started last week. So y'all got at least one, maybe two now. But every week you're gonna get this in your inbox, and it's gonna have like this link in there, the DB, that link, and it's gonna have your schema in there, like what she has over there in her schema sequel. And she copy and paste. There it is. Yep. 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 And then up at the top, that's where she's answering like those the business questions. Like the epidemiology team needs to see a list of confirmed cases along with their patient first name, last name. So it's basically asking you them questions, and then you go and write your code to answer those questions. And that way you can practice, in between sessions as well. And kind of start gearing up. Yeah. Oh, it went in your junk folder? Oh my God. But yeah. Yeah, I'm glad y'all stayed on too. Like, cause sometimes you just be, that's why I was like, shoot, just stay on. Cause sometimes it be small stuff like that. Like it's, you know, but yeah, I'm glad you stayed on too. Cause these are really good. Like even when I send them, like when I was creating them, I was doing them too. Like, because it just, it's practice. But yeah. Let me know if y'all need me between now and next week. Like I said, next week, whatever y'all did this week, do it again. Because everything after session 3, for sure. And then session 4, we get into CTEs and case statement. I mean, CTEs and views. Everything is like once you get this type of stuff in your back pocket, everything is like some form of that or like an extension of it. And that's enough to get your role. Like, because you, from that point on, we're always learning, we're always growing. But once we get like these concepts, baby, let's go. Like, let's go. So yeah, if y'all need me for anything, let me know. And if I owe you some, pull up, say, hey, you know, whatever it is, and I can get you squared away so we can start getting the ball rolling. You're welcome. Good night, y'all. Um, what's up? Facebook. Where am I? I don't know where I am. Facebook, Instagram. I don't know. Facebook, LinkedIn. Thank you all for joining me tonight. My name is Larita Shaw. I'm a self-taught senior data engineer. I'm also the founder of Data Analytics Simplified, where I support those that are non-traditional, fully transition into the space of data. What you just sat in on was our live SQL session. All of my students get their own environment. We don't do passive learning. We walk through the code. We learn together. We debug. We talk through concepts. They break stuff. They fix stuff. We share our screens. It's very hands-on, very interactive. So thank you all for joining us tonight. So bye, y'all. Thank you. If you would like to, and let me go on and invite you while I'm here. So for those of y'all that stayed in on this session and are like confused, like what were they even talking about? I'm hosting a Clarity Before Code offer, and that's for those that are data curious. We talk about how data fits into your current work. What are some current tools that you can learn to leverage? Everyone leaves with a free complimentary 30-minute consult. They also leave, well, it's not free because you paid for it, but they leave with a complimentary consult. They also leave with a data workbook where it allows you to personalize how data shows up in your life or your current role, what tools are beneficial for you to learn. And the $75 credit that you pay for Clarity Before Code is actually a credit if you do decide to pursue technical training with us. We offer Excel, SQL, Power BI, and coming soon, we are offering Python automation as well. All of our sessions are taught in the same format, live, small, interactive. It's me, 5 other people in your cohort, and all of my experts are live data practitioners. Collaboratively, we all have over 30 years of experience in the data space, and that matters to me. You also have an individualized transition plan where we identify the current work that you're doing, and we're very intentional on leveraging who you already are to transition deeper into data. I don't believe in people having to totally reinvent themselves. I've supported people from healthcare, education, marketing, operations, customer service, adequately leverage data in their day-to-day lives. So thank you all for joining me tonight. And I got 3 viewers. I don't know where y'all live. If y'all have any questions for me, I can stay here for like a few minutes. If not, I am fatigued. I just got off of a 2-hour live session. So somebody just got off. All right. Bye, y'all. I'm out.